Today, I am going to share with you my top 5 graffiti markers for Freight Graffiti specifically. These markers or classes of markers have formulae that are resilient enough to withstand the heavy outdoor travel of the Frteights, and their marker bodies or tips are strong enough to withstand that sort of freight metal, the sort of rusty, sometimes older metal that you commonly see on all types of freight trains, tankers, you name it. So let's get right into it. And although the freight train graffiti scene is obviously dominated by the most versatile of all graffiti supplies, say it with me guys, spray paint, yes, good job. There's a very developed freight tagging scene that everyone has to understand is important to graffiti as well. Although the big pieces and whole cars are always going to dominate the main picture, those tags and monikers done by graffiti writers and graffiti artists are important because they let other graffiti writers and artists know who is there getting up. Number 1. Okay, so I am going to tell you, because I know it's obvious to all of you, what the best graffiti marker is for freight graffiti specifically. And then after that we'll look at some of the other lesser known ones. But the best tool for graffiti freights, by virtue of its versatility and its long life in the freight tagging environment, is solid paint sticks. Now, I don't want to get into which particular paint stick is best for the job. If you are interested in seeing a video where I rank every single solid paint stick I have ever used, which is almost all the ones on the market, you can check that video out in the cards in the corner, or it'll be linked in the pinned comments, first comment in the comment section. The only thing I will say about these solid paint sticks is a lot of people really like the fancier Sakura solid markers, the hand-mixed solid sticks, those kind of things. Those are very good solid sticks in terms of their performance, of course, but you will not see any moniker artist specifically, which is someone who paints those little characters or object-based tags on freights, aka monikers, using anything besides a black Markall B or a white Markall B paint stick. You guys have heard me talk more than enough on the channel about the Markall B paint stick, so I won't do any more of that. I even have a bulk pack linked in the description if you did want to pick some up for yourself, though, for the best deal I could find. But I do want to say, just for the sake of disagreement here, whenever I hear people disagreeing that the Markall B paint stick is a good paint stick, it's usually because it seems like they're looking at it from the perspective of its street utility. And to be perfectly honest, a lot of those street-oriented graffiti artists have probably never seeked out a train spot at all in their lives. You have to remember, we are talking about that semi-smooth to very rough freight metal in all weather environments. And although the Markall B paint stick, or any of the other paint sticks I mentioned in that video ranking all the solid paint sticks, are great for writing on many different surfaces, of course, I think in a street tagging environment specifically, a lot of graffiti artists are looking more for a nice nibbed marker that they can write on those nice smooth metal surfaces, glass, plexi, or say a whiteout pen for those railings, just other surfaces that the solid paint sticks generally come second best in. But with that out of the way, and all of these solid paint sticks out of the way as well, let's get into the lesser talked about markers that are also great for the freight tagging environment. Number 2. This is a marker class that I really think is quite underrated in terms of the freight environment, and that is simply graffiti mops with nibs, normal mops. You have to be willing to rough the nib up a little bit. After a little while, you're gonna get your nibs starting to look a little bit like this, where all the mohair or the cotton hair, whatever kind of nib it is just gone. But I picture these mops being used on the spaces between the ladder rungs on freight cars, or the ends of tanker cars, or the little canisters on the side of tanker cars, all those little places like that. And the freight environment makes it much more practical to be carrying around those massive reservoir size graffiti mops, like this 90 milliliter OTR 003 or 75 milliliter 004, which are just generally a pain to carry in a pocket or something like that. It's hopefully a quiet spot, and there's hopefully lots of train cars all in the same place, and these bigger graffiti mops offer the mileage to move through an entire line if desired. Just to mention a few mops that are personal favorites of mine, I've always really liked the old Genobo mop I have here. It's a standard 10 milliliter one. There's nothing special about it whatsoever. I've always really liked the old block by block solid mop. Just a very nice clean right. The Grog Squeezer minis out there, those are very nice as well. I haven't used them too much recently, but if you do still want something compact, check those out for sure. There are a plethora of graffiti mops out there, of course, but if you did want to explore quite a few of them, we have a playlist on the channel here that is specifically all the graffiti mop reviews that we have done in the past over the channel's almost 10 years in existence now. So you can check that out in the cards in the corner, or it'll be in the description for you as well. Number 3, chisel tips and bullet tips. Now these are not big ones that I use or have used a ton, but you can definitely do worse than developing a good hand style with a chisel tip marker. They do wonders for your understanding of letter structure. That's not just my opinion, tons of graffiti artists will tell you that. These angled chisel tips are very nice, although it's obviously a lot more common to have them filled with inks, which don't do so well when they're exposed to their kryptonite, which happens to be UV rays, and there are a lot of UV rays that hit those freight trains, if you can believe it. But if you're looking for a high quality chisel tip to check out, these Mighty Marker ones are actually really nice. I do have a video on them. It's an interesting one to check out. A personal favorite of mine though is the Grog Cutter Mini, although you should know that their tiny little nibs wear out super fast, and once they get to this point where they're just too soft, they just don't even compress properly, so you will have to get some backup nibs for them if you're going to use it fairly regularly, like this one. As for bullet tips, and again you're finding these used in those spaces between ladder rungs and other smaller places on freights, anything like the 4 to 8 millimeter size bullet tips, like the OTR 4001 bullet is quite nice, or hey, even if you want to splurge and get yourself something like a Molotov 4 millimeter bullet tip, those are quite nice as well. Number 4, whiteout pens. Now this one might be more of a personal preference, so I don't want to talk about it too much, but I find that these are very nice for those graffiti artists who really want to get into those smaller, unique spots that benefit from having those metal tip style lines. This one might be a surprise to most people just because these metal tips aren't the strongest and they seem to break at just the most random times, but that being said, they are a fun one to use. You can tell how much use I've already gotten out of the OTR 8001, which we checked out very recently on the channel. But like I said, this one's probably more of a personal preference, so I don't want to talk about it too much. Moving on. But the number 1 marker here on this list of great markers for FREIGHT Graffiti is one that gets a bad rap for no reason. And that is the Geikum Daylo marker, or the Nissan version, which is I think like the Markov version of this pressurized pump marker. And I get it, a lot of people hate this marker. It's probably more suited towards graffiti writers rather than graffiti artists, if you're aware of the distinction. But this has everything a graffiti artist actually needs for the freight scene. The pressurization allows you to write on surfaces from below them. The sticky formula allows you to write on wet metal. Remember, we're outdoors here with the freights, and the ballpoint is sturdy enough that it's going to hold up just fine. As a bonus, these things just hold up really well against weathering, which is really one of the main concerns here when we're talking about freight graffiti, of course. I think the main reason they are just so hated among so many graffiti artists, writers, is simply just because you can't move very fast with them at all. And these are pretty big if you're gonna try and carry them around with you, of course. Like I said, much better for the freight scene, not so much for the street scene. But if you want to look into these, I will link you to a pack in the description for you to check out. But like I said, these are just my personal top favorites for the FREIGHT graffiti scene specifically. If you want to share a list of your top favorites, spread the knowledge around with everyone in the comments. I'm sure lots of other writers would appreciate hearing your favorites as well, including me. But I have yet to see a good argument as to why these solid paint sticks are not the best freight killers on the market. If you want to see every single solid paint stick that I have used ranked from worst to best, you can check that video on screen now. I'll see you guys over there, and I want to give a big thank you and shout out to the real kings over there supporting me on my Patreon and helping to make these videos possible for myself and everyone else. You guys know who you are. Thank you. Peace.